Hello, wealth hackers. This is Erwin Cito. I'm bringing you the Truth About Real Estate Investing show. Yes, my kids are home. I'm podcasting to you while in self-isolation from my usual space, my home office. My 14 days have passed since we returned from a wedding in Florida. It's actually now 15 days, so we are past the even the more extreme cases where people show symptoms after 15 days. So we're past that now. So at the time of recording, we have no symptoms still to report, knock on wood. We got home before all heck broke loose and self-quarantining was required. So we were just extra diligent about our own self-monitoring for symptoms while maintaining our physical distance from people outside our home. I want to thank everyone for their birthday wishes. Yes, I turned 41 on Monday. I want to thank everyone for the birthday wishes that poured in. I am surprised I didn't get any hate over what's going on in the stock market because that's my fault, apparently. I'm told it's my fault because I got some nasty reviews on my iTunes reviews. So sorry you're having a bad day, whoever wrote that there. The difference a year makes. The last year when I turned 40 years old, Cherry surprised me with a big birthday party at a place that serves alcohol and allows the throwing of daggers, axes, and archery. You just can't bring your drink into the action areas. It was a lot of fun. It was attended by 40-something friends and family who attended. Fast forward to present day. I enjoyed one of my favorite meals, a whole ton of sushi, and I ate it out of takeout containers at my kitchen table with Cherry and the kids. No cake, no family, no friends, not even my brother, my sister, and dad, who all live within an hour from about an hour drive of me. My dad's a doctor, and my brother has a biology degree, so they know full well the importance of staying 2 meters away from non-household members, even though we're family. Am I disappointed? I'm way more disappointed in my stock market losses, but in the grand scheme of things, life is pretty good. We have heat, a full tank of cheap gas in my car. We actually have too much food in the house, as I'm receiving a quarter grass-fed cow tomorrow from a local farmer. So this cow is well loved and well treated, grass-fed, so it ate outdoors. And I ate probably a healthier diet than I did. And I read somewhere how if you compare modern living to the King of England in like the 1600s or the 1800s, it's an interesting exercise. So let's start off with, I have a smartphone where I can Google the answer. I can even ask Siri the answers. I can use my voice to ask Siri to Google things for me. So I can know pretty much the answer to anything. It's all at my fingertips or at the end of my voice. That's the right term. I can watch cat videos, or I can live stream Ripley's aquarium, feeding the penguins. I don't even know if the King of England in the 1800s ever saw a penguin before. I can get into my car and drive to the local Korean restaurant for my daily support of a local business and take out a lot of fine sushi. My expected lifetime is likely more than double that of a royal family member from the 1800s. My kids are vaccinated for many horrific diseases. So again, the richest person thing in all the world in the 1800s didn't even have air conditioning. Hence, to me, physical distancing is not a big deal. My kids are managing quite well. Our nanny keeps them busy playing board games. They're doing homework. They're riding their bikes in the court. Kids are so resilient. While my daughter's staring at me, making it difficult to work. They have some little life experience that whatever they're doing, they consider normal. We bring the kids with us to the office, for example. It's under renovation. We're going to call it the Wealth Hacker Hub. That's the working title for now. We get to bring them to the office with us to inspect the work that's being done. And as we plan our furniture layout, paint colors, finishings, the kitchen, most importantly, our classroom, as we call it, where we will host our friends and family. You can go ahead and check out. You can check out on my website, thetruthaboutrealestateinvesting.ca. Again, that's the truth. Sorry, www.truthaboutrealestateinvesting.ca, or on my Instagram, Erwin Cito, you can see a video of my kids chasing around at my laser measure while we were in the office just this past weekend. I think all the parents know how challenging it is to keep your kids busy while you're trying to do work, like I'm trying to do now. Hey, Robin. When the sports are back on TV, I'll have an 8-foot projector screen to watch the game with my friends, talk real estate, stocks. It's everything I enjoy. It'll be legendary, all at the Wealth Hacker Hub. Anyways, my kids will grow up thinking it's normal to invest in the stock market, real estate, commercial real estate. They'll all understand economics, sales and marketing, risk management, all the basics of being an investorpreneur. They'll grow up thinking that being one's own boss and owning assets is the path to financial peace, and not the standard go to university and get a good job and a pension. There's nothing wrong with that path. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. My baby cousin is on that path right now. He just became a full-time member of the Canadian Armed Forces as an aircraft mechanic, and I could not be more proud. However, I'm raising renegades who will have no boundaries. They'll do what they want. It's not so you know what I mean. On to something about investing. We are finally turning things around with our stock hacking investments. I'm down about $40,000 of my original capital. However, last week I was neutral. I actually had some really great winning trades until something went sideways. I just transferred more cash to my trading account, and we had a wonderful surprise. My wife Cherry, who funded her account, made a very nice and tidy 4-figure return in US dollars, all realized profits. We are having a friendly competition of he versus she trader, and she's ahead of me this week as well. It's anyone's guess where the stock market goes from here. My best guess is we are a few weeks away from the bottom. It could be even sooner. It could be later. And things could get a whole lot worse. This virus is making its way. It does not care if you're rich or poor, young or old. Sadly, I don't think the US is very well prepared for it. So it's going to be sad. It's already sad. But when reality starts hitting the news, how bad things are, it's going to be even more sad. I have positions that will profit in all markets, up, down, sideways. Including I bought shares in a little company called Zoom. You may be familiar with it because I do all of my recordings now of this podcast using Zoom. And anyone who's working from home, especially you entrepreneurs, you likely know what Zoom is by now. This is not a recommendation, by the way. More on the new Stock Hacker Academy version 2.0 with the godfather of stock option investing next week. So, quick announcement: we have moved our incredibly high in demand free training sessions on the number one investment strategy in real estate to online. Normally we sell out in hours of an email going out because the room that we reserve to host these trainings can only hold 50 people per fire code. However, the show must go on. That room is actually no longer available as the city of Mississauga is now closed. However, this strategy needs to be taught, needs to be learned, because it will protect you in down markets. It will accelerate your returns in up markets. It is a must know. For now, these classes are free, social distance friendly, and I personally attend them. So if you want to come by, say hi, learn the number one investment strategy that is practiced by all the top investors, including today's guest, Sarah Coupland, then you'll want to sign up at www.investortraining.ca/free class. Again, that's www.investortraining.ca/free class. You can go see this in the show notes on the website as well. In the real estate world, the top two concerns are tenants not paying for rent and to defer mortgage payments or to not defer. Our JV partner went ahead and deferred one of our mortgages for 6 months with one of the major banks. All she did was phone in. The wait times I'm hearing are long, but it was pretty easy. I think she only had to wait an hour. I'm hearing people are waiting 3 hours or even more. Please do be sure to read and understand what you're doing if you choose to defer. The best terms I'm hearing is the deferred mortgage payments are spread over the remaining years of your entire mortgage, and not just the term, which to me is fantastic. So, for example, if you have 17 years left on your mortgage, of a 25-year mortgage, for example, then your deferred payments are spread over those 17 years of payments. So therefore, your monthly incremental cost is quite low at these historically low interest rates. Yes, your interest payments will likely be compounded. Again, though, these are historically low interest rates. I don't know if we can do any better on the current rates. Again, this is highly lender dependent. All lenders are different, so get your info directly from the lender. I'm just really happy and positive and thankful for all the information I'm getting. I'm really lucky to be part of the iWin community, so I'm getting all these real world updates. I'm getting a couple of them a day, so it's actually wonderful to see. Great job, banks. Great job, Canada. Do keep in mind that your other expenses, property taxes, utilities, phone, car. I'm hearing deferrals available for like almost everything. Should you be in financial distress, so please do take care of your mental health, along with taking care of your financial health, because taking care of your financial health will greatly improve your stress levels. So go ahead, be creative. Ask whoever, if you are in financial distress, whatever bills you pay, contact them, see what's available to you. I'm hearing it's available by like almost everyone. Tenants under financial distress and the ability to pay rent is the subject of this week's interview. The first in our series of emergency webinars, as I'm asking friends who are leading experts to come on this show in very short notice. I asked Sarah. I asked Sarah to come on this show, and she was able to within 48 hours of me asking. So these are being rushed. They are less prepared than ever. However, we have to get the word out. We're doing our best to lead investors in this truly historic times. Starting with multifamily expert and investor Sarah Coupland. Sarah is an extremely talented multifamily investor. She's the owner of tagproperties.ca with over 10 years experience. She's my friend, my regular go-to. I ask her regularly whenever I have tenant challenges what to do. When you have listened to this interview, you'll understand why. So Sarah on the show will mention 2 letters that she sent out to her tenants. So email subscribers of my podcast, you'll receive copies of those letters as attachments to when this email goes out. Hopefully we can do that. If not, then at least we'll link them. So anyone who subscribes to my email, you'll have links to the 2 documents that she refers to in this show. They are excellent. The feedback's been excellent. My friend Brady McDonald, who has over 100 properties, said they were excellent. He sent them all out to his tenants as well. If you're not already subscribed, well, that's just silly. Go to www.truthaboutrealestateinvesting.ca. I'll slow down. www.truthaboutrealestateinvesting.ca. Enter your name and email on the right-hand side, and you'll get these episodes in your inbox every week without you having to subscribe or follow up or remember to do so. Without further ado, I give you Sarah Coupland. As I mentioned in the post, we're just doing this just to be community leaders and try to help people out in these challenging times. And I've seen people post on social media on like Ontario Landlord Watch Group, for example, people with concerns about how to handle the tenant relationship in these times. So then I thought, who can I reach out to? Who is I've mentioned my dad a couple of times. My dad, classic Asian parent, he always said to me, "There's always someone better than you." So, and he's right. There's always someone better, but I always look in everything that you've seen in what I do. I always reach out to the best of it that I know. And that's why we have Sarah Coupland here, who is a multifamily investor. She's an expert in this. She has many of her own properties, many of her own tenants, including her own property management business. Sarah represents her clients in her own interests at the Landlord Tenant Board as well. So she's incredibly well versed at all of this, and we mastermind together. And Sarah unfortunately gets all of our tenant questions. So she's used to being asked about how to deal with tenant problems, relationships, management, all sorts of things. And these are historic times. So welcome, Sarah, and welcome everyone else as well.
Yeah, so we've had a lot of uncertainty sort of in what's happening, and you see on social media, and our tenants have been contacting us, our clients have been contacting us, and the question is, what's going to happen to investors and our rents and our expenses our tenants in a time of financial distress. And it's interesting as a real estate investor, because you look at contingencies and you look at having a contingency fund, and if there's a market downturn, you just don't sell. But I did not have in my contingency plan necessarily, what if I don't have a single tenant pay rent in a month? Because that's kind of worst case scenario. And that's sort of what we're looking at now as to what might happen. A lot of people are, they're off of work. Some people like myself are socially isolated because they've been away. And thankfully I can work from home, and I'm set up that way, but not everybody is. Social distancing, some people are home because they have to take care of their children. Some people are sick. Some people have others in their lives who are at risk and can't be exposed. So they have to stay home and self-isolate to make sure that the people that they love are safe. I think that when it comes to our tenants, we have to realize that they're going through these hardships and uncertainties as well. And I think that as landlords, we sort of have a fiduciary responsibility to educate ourselves on what's going on and be able to help educate our tenants and let them know what to expect. And it comes down to my philosophy on training your tenants. And I actually, at our property management company and with my own properties, we do this right from the beginning, and we're always trying to train our tenants. And basically what that means is providing people with the education that they need to know how things work, what your expectations are, and keeping open communication so that if they have questions as time goes on, that they feel free to come to you and have discussions with you and really be able to have that relationship where you can trust each other and get through things. So we actually sent out a correspondence to our tenants yesterday. I do think it's really important to have conversations with your tenants in advance of them actually having the financial hardship and being unable to pay their rent. One, what's going on. If Joe and Sally are not going to be able to pay rent, it's better for you to know today instead of on the second of the month when you don't have that. So then you can prepare as well. But then also you can have that conversation with them, and they will sort of know what your reaction might be and what their options are. So I do suggest that everybody sends an email, or if you don't have tenants, at email, pick up the phone, give them a call, and have a conversation to open that communication, and also to help train them and educate them on how things work. So what we have done with our property management company is we've actually suspended all unnecessary repairs and maintenance just to keep people safe. We don't necessarily need people going into their homes to do things unnecessary at this moment. We've asked people to still let us know and say, hey, do you know what, if you have a dripping faucet or you have something that's non-urgent, we still would like to know so we can plan for that down the road when things are back to normal. But unless it's urgent, we won't actually be actioning that and educating them right away up front. We still want to hear from you, but these are the parameters within which we're doing things. When it comes to rent, what we have said is, what rent is still due. I didn't say this to my tenants because I think sometimes it's lost, but if you do need to use it in conversation, I think that some people don't often realize that many of us landlords, especially small-time landlords, people who are maybe working full-time and they have one or two properties as their retirement investment, these people aren't super rich landlords who have buckets of money just sitting around. We're real people who also struggle as well. And a way to look at it is that if we owned a store and we had inventory sitting on our shelves, even in a time of crisis like this, if you needed to come in and buy toilet paper or bananas or whatever, you would still need to pay for it. And our monthly rent is our inventory, right? So like our properties are a store, that's our inventory. So rent forgiveness isn't necessarily something that we're able to do financially. And I think that explaining that to our tenants, if they are unsure about that, is important too, because that's our livelihood and that's our inventory. Just because it's not necessarily tangible doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be compensated. So that being said, I think that we do need to be flexible and understand what people are going through and have that communication with them. So our letter out to our tenants and our message is basically, yes, rent is still due. If you're able to pay it, please do. And It's due on the 1st. We are still issuing N4 notices. I think that that's important as well, because as this transpires and continues along, it's important to still follow the steps that we need to. Once the ban on evictions has passed, that if people are still delinquent and aren't following any prearranged plans, that we have a way to action it down the road. So we've very clear in our message, N4s will still come out, but if you do these things, we're not going to action them if you don't pay your rent. And in Ontario, at least anyways, there has been a complete ban on evictions. People are not going to be evicted for not paying their rent this month. And I think that that's very fair. That being said, what we have asked is if our tenants are having financial difficulty due to suspended work, that they just send us a proof of that. If you're not working, get a letter from your employer, send us proof of the fact that you're not working, and then we can work out something. It could be a payment plan. It could be anything. And I think that really needs to come down to a conversation with your tenant, what they're able to do, what their priorities are, what their situation is. And I wouldn't necessarily rush into any sort of arrangements, because we don't know how long the social isolation is going to continue. So setting up on day one a payment plan that is not going to be realistic for the long term is, I think, almost a waste of time. But having that conversation and open communication with your tenants is really important. Also, educating your tenants on the assistance that's available is really important as well. And the government is reaching out. They're creating programs. They're relaxing some parameters around EI and things like that in order to help people. And in our community, and I'm in Northumberland, so I'm in Cobourg, and all of my rental properties portfolio and everything that we manage is essentially in the Northumberland area. And previous to this, we actually had connections and relationships with people who ran programs that help tenants in need. And so those programs exist even prior to this. In our area in Northumberland, it's actually called community outreach. And through the community outreach, they actually assist financially distressed tenants with rent payments so that they can continue to be housed. And there's also what's called the Help Center. And the Help Center also can assist with rent payments and also utility payments as well. So we've provided those numbers and contact information to our tenants so that if they are going to have some financial difficulty, that they can actually contact those agencies for help. And I think that helping provide them that access can actually help them not only pay for their groceries, but potentially help pay for their rent down the road as well. I've also provided them with links to the CRA websites about EI, and if they're off, have said, you know what, you really should look at, applying for EI, and provided them information on the self-employed application that's going to be coming out in April. So even if you typically wouldn't qualify for EI, you may be able to. And we also provided them information on the utilities programs. Here we have Lakefront Utilities, and they have actually, they're allowing until the end of May, no interest on any unpaid balances. And they also have deferral programs, and I think Union Gas has done that as well. So we sent all that information out to our tenants and said, hey, if you're going to have issues, contact us and let's talk about it.
Was this all in one newsletter?
Yeah, it's jam-packed, and I figured if I send out multiple, then things might get lost, or people might say, oh well, I've already read it. So we put it kind of all in one. I did sort of a letter outlining, here are some things, and by the way, here's a resource attached. So I guess the resources and how to contact everybody in the programs and stuff like that was a separate document, but it all went out together so we could just once. Everybody has it.
4 pages.
Was it? No.
I'm looking at it right now.
Is it 4 pages? My letter to the tenant. So our email was 1 page, and all the resources would be the other 3 pages.
Right.
Because I basically went and I copied right off of them. Like, Lakefront Utilities can say it better than me, so I actually copied exactly what it was off their website and then put it in the document. So, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
We've had some folks ask if you're sharing this letter.
I would be happy to actually. Yeah, and I will give credit where it's due. Elizabeth Kelly actually initially sent out a letter, so I stole some of it from hers, just some of the wording, and then I sort of tweaked it, and then I added a bit specifically to my my particular clients. But I'm happy to share it so that you have all the information as well. Just
Oh yeah, it says lakefront utilities, so you each have to, unless you're in Sarah's area.
yeah, like Lakefront Utilities is basically based, I think, out of Coburg. Like it literally services our local area. So if you're in Durham, it makes no sense. So you'll have to, but if you go on their website, like whatever your utility companies are, go on their website, and like every single one that I looked at had responses to COVID-19 and outlines their programs and how they're looking to help and what options are available.
Amazing. Is it already? Send it out. I need my team to revise this to send to our clients as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. Do you know what? If you just want to do it, that makes it easier for me. So
yeah, because there's 72 people here. Everyone, stick your email address in the chat so Sarah can email you.
Yeah, no, I won't. Everyone will take care of it.
Excellent. Have you had any requests started coming in yet? Have you had any requests from clients, from tenants?
Yeah, we have actually. Actually prior to my letter going out, we actually had a few tenants already contact us saying, "Hey, we're actually laid off. We're not going to be able to pay our rent." And then we said, "Okay, well, we have a communication coming out shortly, so that'll come." I actually also asked our tenants to all switch to our direct withdrawal system. We have a direct withdrawal system, but we have tenants who like to pay by check, and they've always paid by check. And I've been trying to get them over to direct withdrawal, and so we did send out in our letter as well, hey, if you wouldn't mind switching over, I'd rather not have to send staff to the bank to do deposits. So if we can switch that over electronically, we'd really appreciate it. And we've had some long-term people who've been really resistant actually start to switch over. So that's positive as well.
What's the benefit of direct withdrawal?
For one, direct withdrawal doesn't necessarily bounce. I hate checks. If I didn't have to accept them, I wouldn't, because you have to monitor your account to see if they actually bounce, right? And also we end up having to go to the bank and deposit. So it's time out of the office and, queued and standing in the bank. And I like direct withdrawal because we don't actually have to do anything. We use the Buildium property management system. So our tenants go in, they put in their own information, they set it to come out, and it does all of our accounting for us. So on the first of the month, it automatically does the transaction. It does all of the accounting on our client's ledger, on our ledger, and we do have to wait for the money to come in, so it does take a little bit of time, because it takes time for the request to go through, the money to come out, the money to get deposited to our account. But it's much better than checks, which can bounce without you realizing.
Amazing.
Yeah. And I prefer that over e-transfers, actually. Once you get to a certain threshold, you have an e-transfer limit. At one point, it was taking me 5 days to receive all of the rent coming in because we'd hit the limits every day. This doesn't have that. So
e-transfers drives me bonkers. It's not scalable for any sort of business. So all these vendors that require e-transfer, they don't know. They don't understand scale.
Yeah, no.
Let's take a second to take some questions, actually. You okay with that, Sarah?
Sure.
And Joel, I emailed you the letter. So our own team needs to tweak it, and then if you can send it out to everyone on this call, please.
Sure thing.
You can send my client letter too if you want, Erwin, and it has options for.
Oh right, I should do that.
Yeah, I sent one out to all my clients to help educate my tenant, or not my tenants, my clients as well, about sort of what's going on. What happens if your tenant doesn't pay you rent? Like, what can you do to mitigate your exposure and risk as well? So you can feel free to send that out.
Excellent. All right.
Again, some of it borrowed from Elizabeth Kelly.
Isn't she lovely?
She's wonderful.
Big fan of Elizabeth Kelly. All right. Where's this chat group? All right, does anyone have questions they want to ask Sarah? Like, I know, like, Bill, you've had lots of questions. I know you've asked me lots of questions. Ask Sarah. She knows better. Feel free to unmute yourselves. Please just control your background noise, or else I'll have to mute you again. Feel free to turn on your camera as well. Bill writes, okay, I'm getting my list out.
Oh, I saw a question here. What would you say if a tenant refuses to send details regarding their financial effect from missing work? Actually, in the letter, I did state that if you do not contact us to let us know that you'll be unable to pay, and if you do not provide proof of suspended work, then we will continue as normal with eviction proceedings. Now, that is being stayed by the government at this point. There are no evictions. They're not going to evict anybody. But we would file for a typical L1. So we did say, do you know what, if you don't do this, and that goes with the payment plan too. So if you discuss something with your tenants, if you work something out with them, and then the parameter would be, you know, if you don't keep in contact, if we don't communicate and you don't actually follow through with the plan that we're putting in place, then we could proceed with an L1 application. And right now, like, L1 applications are taking a few months anyways to even get scheduled prior to all of this happening. So it is a lengthy process, but I would still start that process, just because down the road, if they can't get cut up or they're not willing to work with you, then you may want to move on. And I just want everybody to remember that good tenants can really be affected by this as well. And we don't want to lose good tenants or taint our relationship with good tenants when a bad situation happens. So, you know, just treat everybody respectfully and be very, you know, open with communication, and really try to work with people as well, because we don't want to lose good tenants in the long run through this as well.
I agree. And then I think what needs to be communicated better by our governments. I think I'm personally not a fan of the language that Ford and Trudeau used about rent. The reality is, like, who was Savio? Thank you to Savio from the Windsor Investor. He was kind enough to share part of an RBC memo. You can tell how rushed the banks are about this, because there's actually a typo in an RBC memo about. And this particular clause is about how if there's any sort of mortgage deferral, they're going to charge us interest as well. So there'll be compounding interest on any sort of deferrals that anyone gets.
I still think it's cheap borrowing, though.
It is cheap borrowing.
It's cheap borrowing, but
we cannot. I don't think it's healthy to let the tenants think that we are just infinite financial resources. Just like Sarah, you were saying about educating the tenants. Yeah. Like the deferral still will cost us money, and if we defer rent for clients, then they still have to eventually come up with that money.
Yeah, it's inventory on your shelf, right? So
it's inventory that's costing us compounding interest.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know, you know, as an investor, I think it's really important to have a contingency fund. But like, say, I have 40 units that I own, and I can say my contingency fund is not high enough to pay all of the expenses on those 40 units for multiple months at a time. And so, you know, I might be looking at that mortgage deferral. And apparently, I think CIBC just will do it, and it doesn't necessarily impact your credit rating because it's a deferral, not a delinquency. But I would use it if you have to. If you don't have to, I would maybe push it out as long as you can.
Mm-hmm. We actually have a relationship with one of our lenders where we don't plan on doing more lending with them, borrowing from them. So we don't mind asking for them for a deferral. Yeah. But consider your future relationships with your lenders and how that is going to play out.
Yeah, like I'm capped at CIBC, so I have no issues deferring at CIBC.
Yeah, same here. Especially if it's our JV. No, I'm kidding. You know, for all of you with JVs as well, you have to educate this on them for them as well, because you know, Sarah is already a very special case in her ability, that her knowledge of this area of business and real estate. And then for the folks who are on this call, you are likely in the top 10%, top 1% of people who know what to actually do in these times. So your JV will be looking to you for leadership. All right, let me scroll through some.
And I had a question. If you're granted mortgage deferral, would you automatically let tenants break or defer rent? I would say no. Not. I wouldn't say, "Hey, I got a break on my mortgage, so you can let your rent go." Reason being, if they are able to pay the rent, I would suggest it, because our tenants, they're tenants sometimes for a reason, right? And sometimes money management isn't necessarily a strong suit. So if you give them a 3-month rent deferral just because your mortgage is deferred at the end of 3 months, do you think that they'll still have those funds, even if they've been working and earning full income? I think that that's potentially setting some people up for trouble. Not to mention, too, your mortgage is potentially being deferred, but your property taxes and insurance, as far as I've heard, have not been. So, yeah, if they need it, definitely let them defer it. But if they are willing and able to pay, I wouldn't just throw that out carte blanche and say, "Hey, I got a deferral, so go ahead and don't pay."
An exercise that Cherry and I did, we actually just whiteboarded all of our properties and who are what are we think are their risk levels are in terms of our tenants based on what their job is. Like, for example, I have 2 clients that work in retail, so I'm pretty sure that they're going to have challenges. So we check who our lender is on that, and so we're prepared to go ask that lender for a deferral should our tenant require assistance.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully not. Okay. Manpreet, I unmuted you, by the way, just so you know. And folks who gave their email addresses, it's okay. Everyone who registered for this will get Sarah's letter, both the messaging to the tenant and also the 4 pages of what to do.
And I just saw a question on what to do to fill vacancies. That's actually kind of a tough one right now. If you have a vacancy in an occupied unit, I do not suggest holding showings. What we have done, we actually only have 2 occupied units right now out of our whole managed portfolio. And we have a full 60 days to fill those. So what I'm suggesting is we actually ask those tenants, "Hey, would you mind doing a walkthrough video of your property for us?" And then that means that you're safe because we don't have to bring people in. We can still potentially fill it. So use videos. We have vacant units, actually. And Natasha, our property manager, she was there yesterday doing walkthrough videos of all of the vacant units. And on the vacant units, it's actually a little bit better because we could potentially do a final showing for somebody if they have pre-qualified, they've already sent in their application, they've seen the video, they like the property. And if they're like, "Yeah, I'm 90% sure I just want to see it in person," then heck, we can go put a lockbox on it, give them a code, and then they can go and take a look, right? But I think at this point, just to respect social distancing and isolation, we should not necessarily be going and bringing strangers into someone's house when we can't control exposure.
Thank you, Sarah. I actually asked my property manager, to take a video so we can show it to people. Yeah, the showing question is a good one because like my team is real estate agents, so we're doing as much as we can digitally. Mm-hmm. Including we're doing Zoom calls on our phone with our clients. I don't think anyone drives with their tenants to show property, but in case you do, it's probably a bad idea. Drive separate cars. Ryan Burns is asking, "I've heard mortgage deferral is for principal mortgage only." Oh, I think he means principal residence. That's not what I'm seeing. I have friends that deferred investment mortgages on rental properties. Depends on the lender. The lenders that were specified, I believe, were CIBC and RBC. Of course, don't take this as fact. Go try for yourself. I see a lot of people posting on social media. They're having extensive wait times on the phone. Not social distance friendly, but I walked into my branch and it was really quiet. So
I contacted my my advisor at CIBC, and she said everything through CIBC has to be done over the phone. So she gave me the phone number and she said, "I'm looking for 3 to 5 hour wait," but they have dedicated people to help with mortgage deferrals there. So she's like, "I can't even help you if you come into the branch at CIBC." But
fabulous. I actually saw an email from my CIBC guy. It might just be I'll read it for it later. He sent me a link. Any other questions, folks?
And someone asked, does it make sense to, I probably wouldn't discount rent. It would be on a case-by-case situation, right? So have that open communication, and you can discount the payment, but I wouldn't discount your rent. But again, that's, all based on different situations. And for right now, not knowing how long this is going to last and how it's going to impact people, be very flexible, I would say, with your payments. If somebody's willing to pay you something, even though they're off, that's great. And, let them know that they're not going to be evicted as long as they keep communication with you and work out a plan. As to what that plan looks like, I think it'll depend on the particular tenant, your relationship with them, and their ability to access different things. Like we're saying to our tenants, okay, you're not working. Have you contacted community outreach? Have you contacted the help center? Are you looking at enrolling in their programs for financial assistance? People have to take it into their own hands as well to be able to attain the finances that they need. Have you applied for EI? Have you, and if it's just like, well, I'm just not going to pay until this is over. Well, I don't necessarily know that's acceptable if there are different avenues that they can obtain assistance.
Oh, and I do suggest everyone file their taxes on time. I believe you do not get your child care benefit if you do not file your taxes at the original deadline. This is how bad I am at taxes. I don't even know what the original deadline is. I think it's the end of April.
It's the end of April, and that's true. I'm always late with my taxes pretty much all the time, and I think that they do. They don't release the next bit until after that, but they've extended the deadline till June. So I'm assuming that they'll continue to pay child tax benefit until June.
I think they still continue to pay. It's just I don't know. Cherry told all of our clients, if you want to maintain the schedule of getting that benefit, then you need to file on time. And then one of our clients shared, because thanks, shout out to Roger Auger. He's a real estate investor too, so he's been calling around for his own purposes and sharing. So he shared that Meridian Credit Union is deferring mortgage payments for 2 months. The big banks have said 6. It is case by case. My experience was, I was at Scotiabank 2 days ago, and they really seem to be a case by case versus I see reports in from friends like Brady McDonald that it was just going to the teller and they just gave it to them. Same with RBC. I forget which hydro. They will let the one for all you Hamilton investors, our hydro will let 3 months delay with no penalty or interest. Wow, no interest.
And I called my tax office yesterday too, because taxes. Property taxes. Yeah. So I called the finance office at the town of Coburg, and she said they are in talks of looking to suspend the monthly tax payment, but nothing has actually been decided on yet, and they have no process put in place. But it looks like, I think that they're looking to kind of wait out the next couple of weeks. So I would also keep in tune with your local municipal tax office as well. She said they're going to be posting it on their website if there are any changes, and they also send out a public bulletin if they're going to make any changes. So like we usually pay our taxes on a monthly basis, and that might be suspended as well. So keep an eye out for that just in case.
Rogers is also allowing deferral of payments. And Home Trust is allowing, it will defer payments on a month-to-month basis. So you have to call each month. Again, this is no free ride, people. Just want to make sure this isn't like what the politicians are saying. There is no free ride. It'll just be added to your principal, and you may have to pay, and you likely have to pay interest and potentially compound interest for most of these deferrals. So again, this is a lot of this is hearsay now. This is technically hearsay. So go speak to your vendors directly.
And there's different options, I think, too. Like typically, like outside of all of this, there are mortgage extension options. So say you've been in your mortgage for a few years and you've paid down a lot of your principal, you can actually look to lower your payments by just extending your amortization. And that's a normal thing that you can look to do at almost any time at your bank. They do also have skip payments sometimes as well, which is a normal thing that is often with a lot of mortgages as well. So when you call in, I would ask what your options are and how it might impact you, because nothing comes for free, right? Like you are going to have to pay that interest and also compound, but maybe depending on your financial situation, even just doing an amortization extension might work for you as opposed to a complete deferral.
Yeah, because the bank wants that, right? It means more interest. It means more future payments to them. They get to keep you around as a customer longer. Did we cover David Riley's question about is it legal to charge tenants interest?
No, it's not, unfortunately. You can, if you go to the board and you get an order from the board, then after a particular date, they will specify interest on that if your tenants don't pay you. Mm-hmm. But you can't just proactively charge them interest, unfortunately.
Okay, so can we do a little role play?
Sure.
Sarah, I'm going to be short for the next 2 months. I'm pretty sure. I work in retail. I work for a restaurant, so I don't deliver food. I'm a waiter. This thing will hopefully blow over in the next 2-3 months. I like to work out a payment plan. Happy to compensate you for the added interest that you had to pay for. How can we work something out? How can we legally work something out that's completely enforceable?
Enforceable. I don't think that anything that we work out will be necessarily enforceable unless you end up at the board and then the adjudicator puts something in place. But, I think that a lot of people are actually going to be, there are good people out there who keep their word. So there are people who don't as well. So to this particular person, I'd say, yeah, I know it's kind of a scary time right now, and a lot of people are being impacted financially. I understand that you're off work. Are you aware of the different programs that are available to help you financially to get you through this time?
No idea. I just think that landlords are rich, and so I come to you first.
Oh goodness! Well, if I was rich, I really wish that would be the case. But we actually don't live off of our rentals. Our rentals are primarily a retirement fund, and even in this time, we still have to pay all of the expenses associated with them. And unfortunately, like yourself, I'm being impacted financially as well. So I'm going to be taking advantage of some of the financial resources available, and if you'd like, I can go through the things available for you also, so that it can kind of be a win-win for everybody. And then I would say refer to the correspondence that we sent out, and mm-hmm. I would talk about the community outreach program and the help mm-hmm. center, and making sure, and especially if they're laid off, and I would say, hey, actually, do you know what, you're eligible for EI if you've been laid off, and they're actually mm-hmm. not. I think it's if for sickness, they're not actually requiring a medical certificate for that. I don't know if you still have to provide a record of employment for being laid off or not. So that's kind of an area I'm not familiar with that I'd want to research before maybe having this conversation. But I would refer them to apply for EI, mm-hmm. and then, yeah, definitely we can set something up. Mm-hmm. Rent is due as normal, because we do still have to pay all of the expenses associated. But we can set up something that works for you, because we want to make sure that your family is still safe and can eat and has everything that they need as well. And we don't want to get too far behind. We don't want you to get too far behind on rent. So if you are able to pay something, we would appreciate that, because we don't want it to be a bigger payment down the road that could cause problems once this all boils over.
Did everyone write that down?
So it's like showing compassion and care, right? And I think that when you're talking with tenants, it always has to be a win-win. If it's mm-hmm. like, oh, if ever it looks like you're taking advantage of somebody, or that you're not looking out for their best interests, mm-hmm. then they get their back up and they don't trust you. So it's all about building trust. And like, I genuinely want to make sure that my tenants can eat. And, and if I had a tenant come to me and say, you know what, I can't even buy ground beef or whatever, I would probably say, hey, well, I have a freezer full of it. So why don't I just help you out? So it's all about helping people and setting an example. And if you treat them well, then they are more inclined to try and treat you well and respect you as well.
Right. So say we come to an agreement for like a 1 month deferral, or I'll catch up. Do we put that on paper?
Yep. Yeah, I would say so. And at this point, through our Buildium system, we have something called e-lease or something, where we can actually take documents and put in, I think, like as realtors, you have DocuSign and stuff like that. So there are ways to get things signed electronically. I wouldn't meet them to sign things in paper, or even just an email correspondence back and forth saying, yeah, I agree to this is probably okay. But when you put something in writing, people take it more seriously.
All right.
And then I would also follow up with them too. You know, if it's a month deferral, getting mid to end of the following month, just say, hey, just want to touch base. Do we need to have another conversation? How are things going? Right?
Excellent. Okay, we have a lot of questions. We're going to be here all day. Thanks, Brian. City of Mississauga has created a tax deferral program. Well, City of Mississauga is always impressive. I'm always impressed of how fast they are with everything. Dave Knight's asking about mortgage deferrals. What I've heard and what I've seen from friends is they literally walk up to the teller and they've gotten it done, depending on the lender. Scotiabank, they have to email head office. There's some special group with a special email, so it sounds truly case by case. Hearing really positive things out of CIBC and RBC, how quickly they turn it around at the teller. Rachel Oliver, friend of the show, Rachel Oliver. Does it make sense to discount rent to keep some money coming in to help cover property taxes, insurance, interest rate charges? Sarah, how would you even document that?
Well, and if you want to look at the legality of it, we actually cannot discount rent any more than a certain amount anyways. And I've actually, back in my early days as a property manager, where I didn't really know all of the rules and what I was doing, I actually ended up at the board representing, back when I could represent, you can't anymore as a property manager. I represented a client who had big discounts on her rent for her tenants if they did these things, and the adjudicator ripped me apart because legally you cannot discount the rent any more than I think it's the same as like the rent increase. Like they base it on the rental, based it on inflation and what like the rent increase is. So I think right now, what is it, like 2.2? So you couldn't actually legally give a discount more than that anyway. So if you wanted to do that, like if you can pay, we'll give you a discount. You are within your rights to do that and offer that to your tenants. I wouldn't necessarily do any more than that. And also, you know, you still have your rent set at what it is for a particular reason. And I would take it on a case by case basis. If somebody's in real trouble, and, you know, they are really struggling, then maybe work out something with them. But I wouldn't go into big discounts at this point.
Georgelle emailed me an online form for CIBC to fill out if you need financial assistance, in case anyone wants to do that. He says response time should be within 5 days, or you can go ahead, call. I've heard reports of several hours to wait for wait time, so consider working while you're doing that. And I had success at the branch for specifically for BNS. So everyone pick your poison. Brian Gordon saying he's heard some lenders not allow mortgage deferral until 7 days prior to mortgage payment coming due. That might be like that might be an example of like Home Trust. Again, you have to call them month to month. They'll only defer it on a month to month basis. Paul Young, are you allowed to defer mortgage if you have a vacant property that's not being rented? So none of us are mortgage experts here. Again, from what I'm seeing, it's from some lenders, it's like no questions asked. Yeah. Sarah, are you seeing a drop in volume for requests to rent? Do people not need a place anymore to live?
Yeah, I think that there are fewer people actually inquiring right now. So Natasha, my property manager, would be better to answer that because she's in it, and she's doing that. But my understanding is we have a lot fewer showings, a lot fewer requests even for that. And I think that in a time like this, especially with social isolation, think of it as like the end of December. Nobody's going to move unless they have to, right? So it's unfortunate. Now, I will say, actually, I had one of my clients reached out to me today. He has somebody who's just actually coming back into the country and was buying a condo, and the condo developer is behind. So if you think about that in new housing and people, like offering your vacant units for a short term might actually not be a bad idea right now, because there are people who are planning on moving into somewhere that's now not going to be completed. So that is a potential opportunity if you are having trouble renting out your units, being able to offer it to people short term who are going to be stuck in limbo because they've sold or they've closed. In this instance, these people went on holiday and were going to just move into their new place when they came back, and now they're like 6 weeks out. So
I was actually wondering how short-term landlords are doing with this, because the level of cleaning is really different now in terms of expectations.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't do any short-term stuff except for my cottage, and we haven't had any inquiries on our cottage. So,
which is funny because I'm sure come cottage season, with gas prices the way they are and people avoiding airports, I think vacation properties will do really well. So Sarah might want to look at your pricing and adjust accordingly.
We might actually, I'm thinking if I can actually just get through some of this stuff here. I still have an impact from our trip just because I've been drafting correspondence, and once I actually get my laundry done and stuff done here, we might actually just head up to the cottage. We're isolated anyway, so
enjoy the bear view. This is from Rob Chain. This is incredibly helpful. Thank you, Sarah and Erwin. Rob, you haven't even gotten the letter yet, so the letter will be helpful.
And I think I saw a question about, have I communicated to my tenants kind of what's going on? And that'll be, or not my tenants, my clients. And yeah, I sent a separate correspondence out to my clients, which we'll share with all of you guys as well, about mortgage deferral. And like, you can call your utility companies if your utilities are included for your rentals, and you can get deferrals and stuff like that. And as self-employed people, we are now eligible for EI, even though we typically would not be eligible for EI. And the government has that rolling out in April. I don't know exactly what it looks like, but it looks like $1,800 a month for self-employed people who are impacted. So yeah, take advantage of, well, don't take advantage. If you need it, use it. If you don't need it, don't use it. But, be aware of what is also available to us. Small businesses also may qualify for a 10% wage grant in order to help keep people employed. So look at that if you're also running a small business. So I think that's all in the letter that I sent out, potentially.
And we'll email it to everybody who registered for this. What are your top questions from your clients?
They actually hadn't really started rolling in yet, and so I did.
That's the beauty of having a property manager; it's their problem.
Yeah. So we did have a couple of people. Like I got while I was in transit coming back home, I did get a message from one of my clients just saying, "Hey, just want to discuss with you what we're looking at. If people can't pay rent, can you get in touch?" And then we put out that correspondence pretty much right afterwards. And the response is that it was just really helpful, and that they're kind of glad that we're on it, and we're educating people, and we're managing the situation ahead of time.
Fabulous. So thank you to Lisa Dominguez. Global News just reported you do indeed need to file taxes on time to continue to get tax credits. So lucky to all you single people without kids. Diane Brennan says Toronto has done so. I think she means property taxes. Sarah, you need to move to the big city. I'm just kidding. Joel says, actually sounds like there's a lot more tax breaks for tenants who lost their jobs from different sources than relief for landlords. Yeah, we come last. Landlords, oh boy, never mind. I won't get into it. Gino, thanks for posting the link to CIBC. I posted it after. I didn't see that you already posted. Yes, Sarah. Brian says Well done, Sarah. You're far superior to the typical property manager. Sarah is not just a property manager. Sarah invests quite a bit. For us smaller investors like myself, I don't have in-house property management. Typical when you have a big outfit, you typically bring property management in-house. It's funny because when you start, property management's in-house. When you get a little bit bigger, 5, 10 properties, you outsource it all. And then when you get really big, like Sarah, then you have to bring it back in-house. So yeah, Sarah's more than just a property manager. She runs her own business, so she knows what this is all about. Was told Zeno Borelli saying he was told they would easily approve 6 months deferral on mortgages and HELOCs. And just a quick note about HELOCs, folks. This has been going around. It's highly unlikely that the bank will take away any of your credit. But it did happen in the U.S. in 2008, 2009 during the financial crisis, where people's lines of credits were taken away. Limits were reduced. So something that we've done, Cherry and I have done, is that we've actually moved some of our HELOC money out of that bank so that they can't get it. And we're investing it anyways.
And it's not a bad time to actually explore increased credit options as well. Like if you think that you may have, if you might be financially impacted because of it, looking at increases, if your credit's good and, you can do an online application, see if you can add a little bit of extra money to your unsecured credit cards. HELOC, you'd probably need an appraisal, which might make it a little bit more difficult, but unsecured credit, overdraft, stuff like that, it might not be a bad idea to analyze that and see what else you can do.
Arlene's asking about student rentals. You don't have any student rentals in Northumberland, do you?
No, we don't. No.
So the nice thing about students is we already have our May check. Sorry, we already cashed our May checks. April, if you have turnover, April was your last month's rent anyways, so that was good. I haven't heard much in terms of student issues, except in like St. Catharines, where students are already asking for summer abatements. So no different than when you're marketing student rentals originally to student tenants, is they signed the lease to have rights to the property the entire 12-month term. So if they don't want rights to the property for the summer, then my language to existing tenants would be, I can start marketing the property, and I'm happy to let you out of your 12-month lease. Meaning that if I find someone else, they can have the property. So we're just playing fair in that way. Of course, use all Sarah's language to make it all sound really nice. But this is the reality. You signed a lease in order to hold the house, to have rights to the house. If you no longer want full rights to the house for 12 months, then I'm happy to find someone else to rent that property. Just know that you need someone to move. You're going to be somewhere else when school starts. And by all indications, schools will start in September. And I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news. I don't think we're going back to school this year.
I don't think so either, which Quinn is going to be like so happy about, but man, it's going to be a long time at home.
Yes, Rob, if you want to ask more questions about students and guarantors, feel free to host them. Rachel says, thank you. Joel, you're supposed to be working. Are you to see repayment of deferred rent when people finally get back to work anyways? How would you pursue unpaid deferred rent? Question for Sarah. Thanks, Sarah, for being here.
Unpaid deferred rent. So it's a contract and it's an agreement, right? And I think that we do need to be flexible. And again, it's about communication and understanding people's situation and having them understand your situation as well. And I have no issues telling my tenants exactly the situation that I'm in and why what they do affects me and how. So if you make a payment plan with somebody and then all of a sudden they can't, and it's because their EI check didn't come in, if it's something that's legit and they can prove it, I would continue to be flexible with them. You can rewrite a payment plan if you want to. If people aren't doing the things that you've asked them to do, if they don't provide proof of unemployment, if they don't do the things that you need to support and validate the things that they're saying, then I would just continue as normal. So give the N4 regardless, and have that conversation saying, hey, you know what, we had this agreement. Let's talk about why it's not happening, why you're not able to do this. And if, they're not paying just because they don't want to, or I don't know, maybe they've spent their money on something else, who knows, whatever the situation might be, if they're not being truthful, honest, or communicating with you, then file the L1. And I think that's going to be my directive, is willing to work with you, but you also have to work with me, right? Like, I'm going to give you flexibility. You need to communicate with me. And if you don't do that, then I'm just going to assume, which assumptions aren't great on either side, which is why we need communication, and then go ahead and file the L1. But I'd make that very clear. So if you're going to do a payment plan and it's by email and you're going to agree to it by email, just say, if we don't follow this payment plan, or if we don't discuss and agree to change it, and you don't pay by X date, or you don't do what you're supposed to do, then we will file for eviction, which we will proceed with once evictions are back on the table. Right?
Thank you, Sarah. Arlene's asking about student rentals for existing inquiries. So I'll handle that one. Actually, we'll tweak what I'll use Sarah's advice. If you have students already in the property, you probably have a leader in the group or someone who wants to make some money. I would offer them like $25-$50 to shoot a video tour of the property. Start with, "Hi, my name is Sarah. I love this house because," go explain that, video tour of the property, get the recording, get her to send it to you, Dropbox it, and then send it to prospective showings. Okay, we'll take one last question. So Anne, you got the last question. We don't have all of Sarah's time. She makes a lot of money doing real estate, so this is a favor to me. Is it important for the owner of the property to communicate with tenants directly, even if you have a property manager, or does this complicate the issue? It's a good question. Do you want your clients going over you to talk to your tenants?
Not necessarily, but I think that if, say, as far as with my clients, I think that they need to agree on whatever plan we're going to put in place, right? I would also make sure, though, that your property manager is in line with your vision and how you want to treat your tenants as well, because not everybody is going to have the same message. Not everybody is going to communicate it the same way, right? So I would reach out to your property manager. If they haven't reached out to you already, I would reach out to them and say, "Hey, how are you handling this? What communications are going out, and can I see them?" And proceed from there. I think that for our clients, it's probably in their best interests for us to be the go-between at this point. We're going to be, we're the ones who have the relationships. Like, quite often our tenants don't even know who their landlord is. In many instances, we deal with them exclusively, and aside from the owner's name being on the lease, they have no communication with them whatsoever. So we already have relationships with our tenants. So I think that in this instance, it's better for us to be able to build on those relationships and discuss with the tenants, and then go back. Now, that being said, I also don't want to spend a ton of our time going back and forth either. So some of our clients are really wonderful at trusting us and trusting that we're going to do the best thing for them, and we can have a quick conversation. They can get on board. We do have some other clients who really like to get involved and really like to take things into their own hands through us. And in those instances, it might actually be better to bring those two people together, and then they can hash out whatever agreement they'd like to, because a lot of things can kind of get lost in translation. And it can also be very time consuming. So I would kind of play it by ear. If you trust your property manager and they're sending the message you want to send, let them do it. Mm-hmm. If that's not the case, then you may want to be involved and talk to your own tenants, but they're probably the ones with the relationship that would be more beneficial to build on at this point.
Mm-hmm. And a quick lesson on communications, folks. If you don't communicate with your tenant, they're only seeing what Trudeau and Ford are saying, that no one should have to pay rent or default on rent or whatever. So everyone needs to communicate with their tenants in some form or matter. If we actually get to print Sarah, it'd be a good idea to probably print the letter too and send it in mail as well.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Yeah, because I know, like, if anyone doesn't know, email open rates are generally not that great. So. All right.
And even I've actually toyed with the idea of even posting it on our website, like tag, my property management company is Tag Property Management, but like Tag's response to COVID-19 for tenants, and maybe a shorter name, but like having a link. So even people who aren't our tenants who might hit our website can actually get the information as well.
Excellent. Sarah, do you have your investor website ready yet?
Actually, I just saw some emails come through. It's almost ready. So my website, it will be, once it's up and running, is just sarahcoupland.ca. We did our photo shoot, and they're in the midst of building it and putting it all together. And I'm anticipating, they sent me some stuff that they wanted me to do, but I was on holidays, so I haven't really looked at that again yet. So maybe later today I will, but within the next week or so. Yeah, so sarahcoupland.ca, eventually within the next couple of weeks, hopefully we'll be up.
Amazing. Oh, and then we have a bunch of real estate investors on this. Are you going to hold off on your real estate investing because the world is ending?
No, I'm not actually. I do have one particular property that I have under contract right now, that was kind of banking on the tenants leaving, and I don't know that they will at this point. So, and even getting in for inspections and stuff like that may be challenging on that property because it is tenant occupied. I do have 2 other deals, private deals for houses that I'm actually calling this afternoon, and going to continue to proceed because our closings will be a couple of months out for those. No, keep doing what you're doing and just get more creative. Look at virtual, run the numbers. Quite often, if you're fairly familiar with the house and you've seen pictures and stuff like that, you can analyze it and decide if it's a good deal or not.
Right.
And yeah,
because you do that already, do you not? Don't you already do a lot of deals without seeing the property?
Usually my husband doesn't see the properties before we buy them. I usually go through, I have put in offers and I have got accepted offers, and then I go through and I see it before I waive conditions. But I haven't done a ton of that. I know people who do, but
Your deals are complicated, so
my deals are very complicated.
The fact that you do,
yeah.
Thanks everyone for the nice comments. Especially, I'll flag Rachel Oliver because Rachel Oliver has done like over 350 real estate deals. So, thank you for sharing this amazing information. We've got this. Yes, all of you, we've got this. Don't forget, you're not alone. We're gonna continue with the series. I've got a couple other experts out there that I'm trying to book for more like stuff, more webinars like this. And thank you to Sarah. Thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing your knowledge. All right, that's over. I haven't eaten yet, so I'm sure some of you probably want to eat too. I'm sure Sarah wants to eat too. Thank you so much, Sarah, for doing this, and everybody have a great day. Stay safe, stay socially distant, stay responsible.
Bye, everyone.
All right, bye everyone.